The Crooked Man. The storm had been raging for hours when Emma first heard the creak. She was in her grandmother's old house, tucked away in the woods. It had been years since anyone lived here, and the place had that peculiar, suffocating quiet that comes only from abandonment. The wind howled outside, but the house stood still, as though it was waiting for something. Emma wrapped her sweater tighter around her shoulders, the sound of the rain tapping at the windows mingling with the eerie silence. She sat on the faded couch in the living room, her eyes scanning the walls filled with family portraits. They all seemed so lifelike, too lifelike. Every face staring down at her, their eyes following her movements. Then, the creak came again, this time from upstairs. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. A slow, deliberate sound, as though something, was shifting its weight on the floorboards above. Emma's heart skipped a beat, but she dismissed the thought. It had to be the house settling. Old houses made noises. Her grandmother had always said that. But then came the shuffle. A dragging sound, slow and unnerving. She stood up, her legs trembling slightly, and walked to the foot of the staircase. The dark stairwell seemed to stretch upward like the maw of some unseen creature, and for a moment, she hesitated. But the curiosity, the compulsion to know what was happening, drove her to take the first step. Each footfall echoed loudly in the silence, and the air grew colder as she ascended. The dragging sound continued, now closer. She reached the top of the stairs and turned the corner to the hallway. The hallway was lined with more portraits, but these were different. These were older, some black and white, others faded and cracked. She shivered. And then she saw it. At the far end of the hall, a figure stood, hunched and grotesque, its back twisted at an unnatural angle. Its arms were too long, reaching the floor, and its legs bent backward like a spider's. The figure seemed to move in slow, deliberate jerks, its head tilted grotesquely to one side. The Crooked Man. Emma gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The figure didn't acknowledge her presence, but she could feel its awareness, the air around her thick with something wrong, something ancient. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind, a warning she and #039D heard as a child, a story told too many times. Never let him see you. Never make a sound. Her heart hammered in her chest as she tried to back away, but the floor beneath her seemed to groan in protest. The figure turned its head slowly, locking eyes with her, its face a distorted mask of agony and hunger. Its mouth opened wide in a silent scream, its body shifting like a broken marionette. Emma turned and ran, her footsteps frantic as she stumbled back down the stairs. The house seemed to stretch, the hallways warping, bending as if the walls themselves were alive. The Crooked Man was behind her, its dragging footsteps growing louder, closer. She reached the door to the outside, her hand shaking as she grabbed the handle. But it wouldn't budge. It was as if the house itself was keeping her inside, trapping her with the thing that had been waiting for so long. And then she heard the whisper. You should have listened. A cold breath on her neck. The Crooked Man's twisted form was standing just behind her, its fingers brushing her skin. The door creaked open, but it was too late. As the door swung wide, Emma's scream was swallowed by the dark forest. The house stood still, its silence deafening once more, as if nothing had ever happened at all. The Crooked Man was waiting for the next visitor.